Give me some shell. I gotcha.
I trained to become a guardian of the dragon gem, but this world has changed. And its people are divided. Now, to restore peace, I must find the last dragon. My name is Raya.
Chuck. You're getting a little too big for this, bud.
Hello, welcome to Disney's epic adventure, Raya and the Last Dragon. Thank you all for tuning in to this very special panel brought to you by the female lead in Disney. My name is Katie Carroll, and I'm a senior managing editor at LinkedIn. And we are honored to be joined today by some of Raya and the Last Dragon's incredible female filmmakers. Please welcome producer Osnat Shurer, screenwriter Adele Lim, head of story Fawn Veerasunthorn, and modeler Liza Rhea. We're so excited for the release of Raya and the Last Dragon, which comes out tomorrow on Disney Plus with Premiere Access. If you're commenting, please be sure to use the hashtag DisneyRaya. Raya and the Last Dragon is the first Walt Disney Animation Studios film to have a Southeast Asian-inspired setting. And even though the world is fantasy, several of the artists and filmmakers trace their own roots to the vibrant cultures of the different countries, making research trips through Southeast Asia to experience the cultures and ensure the film is authentic. So that's a little bit of background. We're now going to go into a quick discussion. And let's start with Osnat. You've produced many films, including the Oscar-nominated Moana. Can you talk a little bit about how you got into your career? Were there any career breaks and what ultimately led to producing this film?
Mm-hmm. I'll try the short version because I've been around for a long time. I went to film school. I always loved film and theater and have done all sorts of different things. Spent a lot of time in documentaries. I did and found my way into animation. I was lucky enough to find my way into animation at Pixar. So I learned from the best. And got to produce a lot of short films there, short content, DVD materials, different things like that. And then found my way to Disney Animation Studios. I came as head of the development department, as VP of development, and was lucky enough to meet and join Ron Clements and John Musker, genius directors in the making of Moana, and then finished Moana and got lucky enough to get connected with Raya and the Last Dragon. And honestly, if there's something I would say to anyone starting out in a career, it would be just keep making films, just keep making whatever you can make, draw, make films on your phone, just keep telling stories because our stories matter.
Couldn't have said that any better. Fawn, you were born and raised in Thailand and grew up being inspired by Disney films. But we do know that women make up only about 20% of key behind the scenes jobs in top grossing films. What do you think some of the barriers are to women getting into the industry, and how can companies bring more diverse voices into entertainment?
For me, I think I had the problem of not knowing the job was a thing, was available, because I didn't grow up in the big city. And I think with the change of internet and social medias, I think the younger generation will benefit from being able to see the work that millennials like me put out there on social media platforms. And, and for us to be able to see a variety of talents who's putting their work out there, that's kind of changed the landscape of hiring pool. Traditionally, where people would go to really expensive college, where not everyone may be able to afford that. Now that doesn't have to be the case anymore. maybe the company can look at how they can hire outside of their usual norm or hire internationally. I think that would help. One other things that I thought would help would be for the company to provide like really good childcare options or incentives, because that's one thing that is a challenge of women working in the industry, of having to choose between their family or work, where you can have both. I enjoy having Disney daycare for my family, and I think that's something that is an extra level that we can look into.
I saw a lot of nods and thumbs up to that. What other things do you think could help women or underrepresented groups get into entertainment? Adele, do you want to weigh in on that?
First of all, I want to say like Fawn Veerasunthorn is a rock star, and just watching her pitch storyboards is like a thing of beauty. And I want that like videotaped and shown to little girls all around the world. And I'd like to say, I grew up in Malaysia, and, when you grow up in a part of the world where you feel that a lot of Western audiences are not particularly familiar with or aware of, and not really seeing yourself, reflected in major Hollywood movies or global movies, it's easy to sort of assume that, faces like yours or stories like yours, don't have a place on that level, but it could not be further from the truth. And I think the wonderful thing about Raya really is, showing that, not just little girls in Southeast Asia, but that no matter where you are, around the world, that your face and your story matters. And if you get a chance to tell it, that the global audience, really is interested in celebrating your culture with you. And to your question of how do we make this, more, to get more women behind the, in those positions, really, I mean, it sounds simplistic, but, hiring more female creators, because what that does is it begets more work for women. If you look at a lot of movies, when you have a woman at the helm, or you have a woman in a core creative position, we're making sure that there's representation, on all aspects. So not only in Raya do we have, strong female protagonists, it's a strong female friendship that's at the heart of this movie. And even the villain is, the other side of female relationships, someone she has a deep sort of complex relationship with, and being able to really lean into those relationship dynamics that we don't see in Hollywood movies very often. And what I mean by begets more work is like when you create the part, then an actress, gets to play that role. And then when you look at the background characters and seeing, well, are the background characters equally represented? Are they 50%, men and women? Then you have more background artists, involved in that work too. So, really, when you have content creators who are women or who are from a different point of view, you really have a better chance of having, that diversity reflected in all aspects of your movie.
Absolutely. And as a screenwriter and working on films, including Crazy Rich Asians and others that have sort of broken the mold a little bit in terms of what can be commercially successful and a huge major movie moment. What does it mean to you to write women's stories, or to write stories from groups who maybe don't see themselves reflected in entertainment traditionally?
It is an honor and it's a joy, truly. I've been writing for Hollywood for a long time, mostly in television, and I was frequently the only woman in the writer's room. And even though I grew up in Southeast Asia, it was always a part of myself I was very proud of, but it had to sort of be parked in a box somewhere because there really wasn't room for that story. And my hope for young female storytellers coming up is to not feel like they have to park part of themselves into that box, that they are free and welcome to be able to, really tell those stories. Because we're so used to what an action adventure, big Hollywood blockbuster looks like. And I think what all of us are so proud of with Raya is that it's not a huge departure, that, Raya can be an inspiration, not just for young girls, but for young boys everywhere. And to show, this ideal world where being a girl is never held against you or never seen as a drawback, that even though our characters are female, they are not solely defined by being women, that they have fully fleshed out lives, characters, journeys, that they are on. So, that's I think what I'm most proud of.
I couldn't agree more, and I love that. And I would love to open that up to everybody. How do you feel like your own careers and representation around you in your careers have changed over time, both in terms of the day-to-day work, but also what's out there on screen?
I can start us off because I think about this a lot because I guess I've been working on, I'm the oldest one in the room. And seeing the changes and the shifts are huge, not fast enough for my taste. I'm a little impatient. I'm waiting for the day when we're not actually having a conversation about how special it is to have a movie with 3 strong female leaders and with a strong female friendship in the center of it, and sort of the antagonism that's sort of the opposite of friendship, and a warrior, and I'm waiting for that day. Like I think there's a moment that we'll get to, but I didn't quite realize how much I miss it until I saw it realized in our film, that just whole characters, female characters, were whole characters with flaws, with something to learn, with a sense of humor, and particularly in action adventures, that when you do get those few female action adventure heroes, they tend to be kind of stoic. They don't have a sense of humor. They don't necessarily change much in the film. They show up perfect, you know? And so I didn't realize how much it would mean to me to see that on the screen. And a lot of that has to do with having more and more of us in the room. And it only takes, you know, Fawn, Adele, and I giving each other like a little look, and we know what we're thinking. We're thinking, hey, you know, in this part, our female character has to give a command, and it's going to be a tough command, and that's okay. That's okay. She's commanding the situation. I mean, it's down to every little decision. And I have to say, for this group of filmmakers, men and women, the commitment just to tell a great story of a hero and a hero's journey was complete. There's not a moment when anyone's issue is their gender. And I want to see more of that.
How much does a network or community make a difference? You mentioned, you know, being able to kind of look at each other and say, okay, we know what we got to do. You know, what does it mean to not be the only person of that group in a room? And has that experience changed for you all over your careers?
I used to be the only female on the team when I started out in my career, and sometimes the only minority on the team. And on Raya, I'm proud to say that oftentimes people comes and go, but we maintain about 50-50, right, Osnat?
Yeah.
Within
Yes,
our story room. And that makes such a difference. For example, if there's a scene between mother and daughter, I can give it to someone who I know who would have like a lived experience on how to navigate that relationship or that conflict. And I think that's something that will bring authenticity to the storytelling and kind of balance out the room. I'm not saying that the room should be one kind of person, you know, I enjoy having people from all walks of life in there. And I think that's really important to the work that we do.
Yeah, I think especially when, go ahead, Adele.
Oh, sorry. You know, just to add to that, it's the allyship that you have, you know, with other people. And to say, to Disney's credit, it was a first for me coming in from live action and working at Disney animated feature for the first time. But that at every level, at the story team headed up by Fawn, with the animators, you know, the even visual development, that there were so many people and women, you know, of Southeast Asian culture, or, you know, had Southeast Asian roots, being there and being able to add all these small details, and for the rest of us to be able to recognize it and, you know, and like call it out and say like, yes, this is something we want to celebrate, something that you don't necessarily learn from books or from cultural experts or from doing research, but, you know, just in how we grew up. And so that's the importance of having people, you know, behind the scenes, and also having enough of us where our voices can support each other. Exactly.
That whole thing, it's quite real. I don't think there's, all of us on this panel, I'm sure, even the youngest, have experienced this where, you know, you say something and then somebody else says it again later and everyone goes, yeah, what Bob just said. Like when you're not always heard and seen. And if you have somebody else in the room who can go, what Adele just said, like echo it into the space. And these are people with all the best intentions. It's just habits, old habits that die hard. And also just to say, I've been lucky enough in the last few years to be able to mentor people, primarily young women of underrepresented communities, through the academy program, through other programs. And just to see the quality and the level and the assurance and the confidence that's coming up in the next generation makes me so happy.
I love that. And mentorship is so important. And, you know, we've already talked a little bit about sort of, do you even know some of these careers are out there? And Liza, I would love to turn to you. how did you get into model making? And what was it like for, creating basically 5 different worlds for this film?
So Commander, yeah, absolutely. So I actually started off in theatre in set design. And I think when I watch movies, I just instinctively gravitate towards the environment and what the environment is doing to enhance the story and to bleed character into the world around it, to add to the authenticity of what the journey is taking you on. And then I didn't know when I was younger that you could go into animation. I grew up in a small town in England, Northampton. It's not that small, it's smallish. I just didn't have the exposure to knowing that was an option for me. So I went through the path of going through theatre, and I love theatre. But then I gradually found I can actually do animation. So I got my master's in animation. And then after a while, I realized I wasn't the best animator, but then there's so many different elements to making a movie like this. And I could go into lighting and rendering or character modeling or environment modeling. And then finding my feet with that was actually a really fun journey. I used to stay up until 2 a.m. rendering and getting my computer all hot because I actually really loved seeing what the environments look like. So after I found that actually I love this, I should probably do this as a job, that's the route that I took. So I didn't aim for, I want to be this. I sort of just took each day as it came, and the art found me. That might sound a little bit cheesy, but it really did. But I think it's really important for panels like this for young women to listen and hear about different opportunities, different roles in this industry. Disney has a really fantastic outreach program. We actually just did a talk last week at a university just describing our roles and how many different elements go into making a film like this. So I think outreach and talks like this and seeing an amazing panel of talent like all these women here today, just listening to how they got to where they are, it's amazing. And I'm so honored to be here amongst all you amazing ladies.
I know, I have to say, I do love sort of all women panels. It's just such a girl power moment, because we can all learn so much from each other. And there are so many things in each of our journeys that, can help people coming up the ranks as well. So I just think I agree, it's really important to share these things and share your stories. We also today with us have Edwina Dunn, who is the founder of the Female Lead. And we have a question for her. Edwina, Awkwafina said that she connects with the character of Sisu because Sisu has optimism and hope and belief in herself, but she's not perfect. And the film sends a message that you don't have to be perfect. And I think that's a really interesting facet of this as it relates to women and girls. Does that kind of representation matter? And do you think that women and girls feel pressure to be perfect?
I do. I mean, we find at the Female Lead that, girls set incredibly high standards and they try and be perfect at everything they do. And it kind of builds pressure. But that pressure is sort of self-imposed. So we love sharing, amazing women, as I see before me right now. We love sharing their stories and the moments where it all went wrong, or they didn't think that they were going to make it, or someone told them that they weren't going to make it. And by sharing those low moments with people like Vanessa, who is aspiring to this world and this skill set, we can kind of show that it's not an easy path, and that we can all learn more when things go wrong than probably when they go right. So, actually, with flaws, we can still be incredible. With mistakes, we can still be incredible. And, at the Female Lead, we want to celebrate when women are amazing, like Liza, like Adele, like Osnat, like Fawn, and really shout about their achievements and celebrate them.
I also think there's a sense of depictions on screen of women being perfect, and none of us are perfect. So I do think this is another form of representation. To see people who kind of feel more like us, and their relationships are complex, as are, human relationships. So yeah, I think on multiple fronts, the representation in this film, is just a joy to see. I have to talk about the elephant in the room, which is COVID. So this is one of the first Disney films to be made entirely from home.
The first.
The first, yeah, not surprising. What was that like? I'd love to hear from everyone about this.
I'll start us off because I was probably the one who was most deeply in it. We were just heading into, I've been on the film for about 4 years. The film's been in development for a long time and been creating assets and modeling and so forth, but we were getting into shot production. It was March and we got a call to take our computers and go home. And we all thought it was for 3 weeks and we're still at home. So we made the bulk of this film from home, from 460 homes. And sorry, I don't know if you hear my dogs, but they're going ballistic. And that was part of it. Every meeting, when one person's dog would start and all the other dogs in 100 households around California would take off from it. But so there were challenges, there were technology challenges, though. A shout out to our incredible technology team, because within 2 weeks they had us up and running, even dealing with our home bandwidth issues. But I think the biggest challenge for us was a cultural one. We were such great collaborators. Animation is the most collaborative art form I know of. And Disney is all about being in the room and building off each other. And certainly my work as a producer has a lot of time when we run into each other on the way from one meeting to another. A lot of work gets done. Fawn and I will go grab a coffee to talk about this one note that we want to figure out how to get in place. I see that the crew is getting a little tired. We order a lovely meal for everybody and have a happy hour. We didn't have any of that. So we had to learn a new way of collaborating and working together like this on Zoom with flat, people are all 2D in little boxes. And it was quite astonishing because it taught us, there's only so many hours you can do this without your brain going mushy. And so we were very disciplined about the shape of our days and about time off and about breaks and about work-life balance, particularly because it's at home. And we also had to learn to trust each other a whole lot more than we ever have before, because we had to rely on each other. We had to delegate. We had to give very clear briefs so that you can really delegate, and then trust, because then we're judging animation on an iPad this big. And when we go to a movie theater and see it on the big screen, the work that people did, if these are Disney animators and artists who usually bring an A or A+ game, or modelers or whoever they are, they brought an A++ game because of that sense of being trusted and of everyone loving this movie and wanting to make something great together. I could not be more proud of a crew than I am of the crew of this movie.
How do you think this will change filmmaking moving forward? Will COVID have a lasting effect even after the pandemic is hopefully in the past?
I'd say yes. I think that we won't stop wanting to be in a room together to build on story, especially in the early stages, because there's just so much you get from it. Plus, it's just people, we like being with people. And these are all our friends that we work with, and they're so talented and go to each other's desks. And so much happens. So much synergy happens when we run into each other. But I think for me, certainly, there was a discipline that we brought to our work-life balance, which I've never, the directors and I, in the last year of production, have never had this much balance. The ability to have dinner with your family is big. So how do you find that? We also didn't commute as much, and that is better for the environment. What can we do there? That level of trust and delegation, can we keep that alive even when we're all together in the room? So there's many things that we will carry forward, and there's others that we can't wait to be done with, which is just sitting in front of a computer all day long, and just being together, eating together, breaking bread.
Anyone else want to weigh in on COVID and what it's going to mean for the future of filmmaking?
Well, there were two things to it. That first of all, the thing I enjoyed most coming from live action, and this being my first Disney animated feature, is working with the story artists. And a lot of that isn't in a formalized meeting setting. A lot of it is you're on the way to get a brownie, and then Fawn or John Ripa is like, Adele, come here, I'm going to show you something, and you're just like, what? And then they show you the boards, and you're like, oh my god, that's blowing my mind. And then you're adding lines, and then they're adding to it, and you're sort of like bouncing ideas off each other. So that was tremendous, and I think that's the part that we want to return to in the after times. But the part where it has been a latent blessing is that I think show business can be, or the entertainment industry can be particularly brutal for families, for women who want to have children and have a little bit of that work-life balance. And so, like it or not, you're all kind of lumped in, but it also gives us a chance to kind of reconnect, at least for me, with my children, and I'm making a movie that has them as a big key part of their audience. And so part of it was like me pitching out stories to them, and having them respond to it. And, hopefully that's something that we also, carry forward in the future, of being able to retain a lot more of that, the family exposure that we have, because it's great for us.
Yeah, we have to keep getting notes from Kina, from Fawn's 4-year-old.
She has a lot of opinion.
I
When
know.
you make a movie at home while you have your child around, and getting to grow up with the film is quite special, because I don't think like we ever have that opportunity before, and be able to have lunch and dinner and never miss those, even when the schedule is really hard. I think that's also fantastic.
Yeah, there are definitely pros and cons to this whole experience. And it's good to figure out what the silver linings are as we're all going through it. I want to switch gears. We have a message from the voice cast, Awkwafina and Kelly Marie Tran, and 6-year-old Kiara.
Hi, Kiara.
Hi. This question is for both of you. Who is your strongest female role model?
Oh,
I'd probably say my mom. My mom taught me so much growing up, and just seeing her work really hard every single day to just make sure there was food on the table for my family. Yeah, my mom. She rules. Hi, Mom.
Hey, Kelly's mom.
Yeah, cool.
I would say a similar answer to Kelly's definitely is my strongest female role model is my grandma, because she raised me. And I think the women that raise you often, they do teach you strength and those lessons very early, like when you're little,
Okay. Awkwafina, if you had a pet dragon, would you let it live with you?
Yes, I would definitely let it live with me. And I would definitely, we'd watch TV together, and, we'd go for long walks.
Are you sure about letting it live in your house?
Where would you let her live?
That dragon blow my house.
Yeah, I would have a window for for when it does blow, unless I want to heat something up,
Kelly, what does it mean to be a warrior, and how can I become a hero?
Oh my gosh. For me, I think being a warrior means to still fight for the things you believe in, even when it feels hopeless. And, that's something I'm still trying to learn how to do. And how can you become one? Well, I'm sure you're already a warrior, Kiara.
Amazing.
I love you, Kiara.
Thank you, Kiara.
Thank you, Kiara.
Very good.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, that was lovely. We're now joined by Kiara and Vanessa, who are going to ask the filmmakers a question each. So Kiara, do you want to kick us off?
Yes. How do I become as good as you to make a movie?
Ha ha ha. You just grow up. That's a really good question. Who wants to lead?
Oh, well, Kiara, what do you like writing or do you like drawing?
Drawing.
Drawing? Oh my gosh, Fawn, this is yours.
You just have to keep practicing. I don't think I would call myself a very good artist when I was young, but I do have the love for drawing. I draw in my school books. Maybe that's not good, but I draw all the time, every chance I get. And that was kind of like the seed of the love of this art. And I would just, I was like, oh, that's not, maybe I can't really make that into a career. And then I found out that you actually can. So I think just keep practicing, and also turning drawing into storytelling, because it's such a powerful tool to have, and to be able to communicate your feelings, your questions, your point of view to the world. I think the world would be like opening up to seeing more of that. So just keep going.
I love that. And just to add to what Fawn said, something that I wish someone had told me when I was young is watch a movie and then watch the credits and look at who did something that you liked and look at how they got there. You know, like research them or go onto LinkedIn or something and see what their journey was to get there. Because you're really at the very beginning. I mean, you're very early on, so you can take so many different paths. So I would just study people that you admire.
And one more practical tip that I heard from our co-director, John Ripa, who's a master storyboard artist. He said that he likes to watch films with the sound off a lot to understand why they're cutting from here to here. What does it make you feel when you see it this way? And then you see, we go close to her and you're feeling an emotion, but he turns the sound off because when the sound is on, he gets caught up in the story and forgets to look at what was the craft. So sometimes try to watch a part of a movie that you really love with the sound off and see what it teaches you, what you learn about storytelling. That's all it is. It's just keep telling stories and keep drawing, and you will get there.
There's a way for us to practice, like Osnat said, when we see the film, a lot of us would like do a thumbnail of that composition. And it's just to practice of like, how do people cut? How do people make these certain decisions? And that is a very good thing to get on.
Wonderful.
And I have a last little thing to add on because I have two kids who make a lot of movies. Like Kiara, do you have, will your mom and dad let you use their iPhone or their smartphone sometimes?
iPad.
Yeah, the iPad, great. So, you know, if you like drawing and you want to tell stories and movies, you know, you can shoot your own little movie on an iPad and you keep doing that. My two kids, they write their own movies. And even if, you know, in the time of pandemic, you can't have a lot of friends coming over to act on it, they use all their stuffed animals to like act out these stories. And it really
Wonderful. And let's move on to Vanessa's question.
I just want to say this has been such a wonderful and beautiful conversation to just listen into and just to see how all of your minds work. It just amazes me so much. My question is, was it important to create such a strong female heroine? And if yes, why?
Oh my gosh, I think, you know, all of us were of one mind, and that the Disney heroine is always an inspirational and an aspirational character. And that Raya is very much a reflection, I think, of the young women today, the young women that I wish I had as a role model growing up. In Southeast Asia, a part of the culture that not a lot of the world knows is that it has a great tradition of female warriors and female leaders. And if you ask anybody with a Southeast Asian mom, they'll tell you how strong and, you know, influential they are. And so, you know, with an interesting character, you know, it's not just about our lead character, Raya. I'm so glad Edwina brought up that detail about girls wanting to be perfect. When Osnat and Fawn and I were, you know, talking about story and looking at other movies that were inspirational with like strong action female leads, they tended to be very much the same. Like they were beautiful, but they were already perfect. And, you know, they didn't crack a joke, or they, you know, didn't have a great sense of humor, or they weren't flawed. And we knew we didn't want Raya to be any of those things because we weren't like that. None of the girlfriends we had were like that. For her to be really relatable. And even though she's wonderful and fantastic and passionate, that she realized, like, you know, there was you know, the way she saw the world wasn't perfect, and there was room to improve, and there was room to grow. And that as much as she kept getting beaten down, that she always got back up and she kept fighting for the right thing. And also with her relationships with Sisu and her relationship with Namaari, there's so many great aspects of female friendship and even animosity that, you know, we got to explore in this movie. And you don't have that with, like, you know, with weaker characters, that they all have to be strong and stand their ground.
Yeah, I think for me, it's also crucial. I was born in Israel. I grew up all over the world. I come from a family of very strong women. My mother was a freedom fighter. And to start seeing more of ourselves on the screen, and as Adele said, flawed and with real world problems and with real world friendships and relationships between characters, and especially to have characters on the screen that happen to be female, that their gender is not the thing that they have to struggle with. That's not their problem. Their problem is that the world is broken and they have to fix it, and their relationships. So it's not that we forget they're female. They're actually, that brings so much of their strength, actually, of the way they end up solving the problems in the world, comes from who they are fully, as fully realized human beings. I had no idea how important that was to me until I saw it on the screen. And I just want to see more of it.
I think that's a great note to end on. Thank you, Kiara and Vanessa, for your wonderful questions. And thank you to our panel for joining us. And thank you to the female lead in Disney. We all really hope you enjoy the film. It'll be released on Disney Plus with premiere access tomorrow. And thank you all so much.